The Caribbean sun painted the horizon in shades of gold and pink as the sleek private jet touched down on the runway, its polished silver body gleaming like a blade under the morning light, and from its cabin emerged Marcus Ellington, a tall, broad-shouldered black CEO whose name commanded boardrooms across the globe, the type of man who built his empire from nothing but grit and brilliance, and by his side walked Helena, his elegant wife whose quiet strength had been the pillar of his rise. Followed by their two children, Elijah, a thoughtful 12-year-old with eyes that mirrored his father's determination, and Naomi, a spirited 9-year-old whose laughter usually turned heads with its brightness, yet today the family had only one goal in mind. To enjoy a long overdue week of rest together, free from the demands of Marcus's billion-dollar corporation, free from the endless calls, negotiations, and battles, and as they stepped from the jet into the humid island breeze, they were met not by flashing cameras or fawning assistants but by the simple joy of family anticipation, Helena squeezing Marcus's hand as Naomi skipped along humming, Elijah holding his tablet under one arm but gazing wide-eyed at the turquoise sea beyond the airport. And for a brief moment Marcus allowed himself to imagine what this week might bring: sun-drenched days, laughter echoing through open terraces, the family dinners he had promised but often missed due to late-night deals, and perhaps even the rare comfort of watching his children simply be children. Yet as fate would have it, the paradise they sought was about to reveal a darker face, one that would test their dignity and ignite a fire that no luxury or apology could ever extinguish. The drive to the resort was scenic, winding through lush green hills and glimpses of azure water that shimmered like liquid glass, and the children pressed their faces to the car windows while Helena commented on the beauty of the island, her voice carrying a tone of calm that Marcus adored. Yet as the car slowed to a halt before the massive iron gates of the prestigious Azure Pearl Resort, one of the most exclusive seaside destinations in the region, Marcus noticed the quick change in posture from the guard stationed at the entrance. Eyes narrowing, lips pressing into thin lines, the kind of subtle hostility he had seen countless times before in boardrooms where he wasn't expected to belong, and though he said nothing, a tightness coiled in his chest as their SUV was finally waved through with reluctant gestures, the luxury of the resort unfurling before them like a mirage, with sprawling white villas, sparkling infinity pools, and manicured palm trees swaying in the breeze, yet beneath the glamour lurked something sharp. Something that would soon cut deep. The moment they entered the grand marble lobby, it became painfully clear that this resort, this supposed paradise, was not prepared to welcome them with the same warmth afforded to other guests, because while well-dressed white families breezed past, champagne flutes pressed into their hands by smiling attendants, Marcus and his family stood waiting near the front desk, ignored, the receptionist barely glancing at them before flipping through papers with deliberate slowness, her lips pursed in a disapproving line, and when Helena, always polite and composed, approached the desk with their reservation confirmation, the receptionist's eyes flicked over her before sighing dramatically and saying in a syrupy voice, "I'm afraid we can't seem to locate your booking, perhaps you confused us with another property," her words laced with mockery that made Helena's cheeks flush with humiliation, and while Marcus remained outwardly calm, his mind catalogued every detail. The name on the woman's badge, the condescending tilt of her chin, the way other guests were waved through with barely a pause, and after nearly an hour of waiting, after watching family after family receive keys to lavish ocean view suites, Marcus finally demanded to see the manager, his voice smooth but firm, and soon a man appeared, the manager of the resort, his slicked back hair shining with product, his smile thin and rehearsed, and when Marcus repeated his name and reservation, the man looked him over with a smirk and replied in a voice loud enough for those nearby to hear, "Sometimes people get confused thinking this resort is for them. We have certain standards here, you see," his tone dripping with superiority, and Helena's breath caught in her throat, her hand clutching Naomi's as the girl whispered, "Mom, what does he mean?" While Elijah's jaw tightened, his young mind grasping the cruelty behind the words, and Marcus, though every muscle in his body screamed to unleash his fury, only nodded once, his silence more dangerous than any outburst, his dark eyes fixed on the manager with a look that made the man falter for a moment before continuing his charade of professionalism, assigning the Ellington family not the luxurious villa they had reserved but a cramped, outdated room far from the ocean, its balcony facing the parking lot instead of the sea. Still determined to make the best of their vacation for the sake of the children, Helena tried to reassure them, unpacking their bags and suggesting they explore the pool, but insult upon insult followed, each one sharper than the last. Naomi, eager to join the kids' club she had read about in the resort brochure, was denied entry by a smiling attendant who claimed the program was full, yet moments later she watched as several white children were ushered inside without hesitation, her small hands clenching in confusion as she turned back to her mother asking, "Why didn't they let me in?" While Elijah, hungry from the long trip, approached the poolside bar only to be shoved aside by the bartender who muttered under his breath, "We don't serve outsiders," before pouring a soda for another boy his age, leaving Elijah red-faced and silent, his pride stung in a way Marcus could feel from across the pool deck, and Helena, usually the peacemaker, found her patience breaking when a waitress deliberately ignored their table during lunch, delivering plates to every family around them. But leaving theirs untouched for nearly an hour, and when Helena politely asked again, the waitress gave her a thin smile and said, "Perhaps you'd be more comfortable dining in town," the insult landing like a slap in front of the children, and that was the moment Marcus saw tears glistening in his wife's eyes, tears she tried to hide, and something inside him shifted irrevocably, the quiet storm in his chest gathering strength, no longer just about poor service or rude staff but about the deliberate attempt to strip his family of dignity, and though he said nothing as the day unfolded, though he endured the whispers, the stares, the smirks, behind his calm exterior his brilliant mind was already at work, calculating, strategizing, remembering every detail because if there was one thing Marcus Ellington never allowed, it was disrespect, especially towards his family. That night, after a day of forced smiles for the children's sake, after Helena fell asleep with tear-stained cheeks in their cramped room and Naomi clung to her stuffed toy whispering, "Why don't they like us?" Marcus sat at the desk with the glow of his laptop illuminating his face, his mind a battlefield of fury and control, and as the island breeze rattled the thin curtains, his fingers flew across the keyboard, connecting to networks only a man of his power could access, pulling financial records, scanning ownership structures, calling lawyers and financial officers back in New York despite the late hour, his voice low but sharp as steel, and while the resort staff laughed in the lobby below about the uppity family in room 236, Marcus was already making moves that would alter their lives forever, because what they didn't know, what they couldn't possibly imagine, was that Marcus Ellington had been quietly scouting properties in this region for months, considering acquisitions as part of his company's expansion into luxury resorts. And by humiliating his family they had not only crossed a personal line but handed him the perfect justification to strike. By sunrise the next morning, when the staff gathered again to sip coffee and gossip, unaware that the ground beneath their feet was shifting, Marcus had already secured the majority stake in the Azure Pearl Resort through a rapid overnight buyout, leveraging his vast network of investors and his own personal fortune, the deal moving so quickly it left even the current owners blindsided. And when the manager strutted into the lobby at mid-morning, ready to resume his reign of condescension, he was met not with sycophantic staff but with silence, as the entire team had been summoned to the grand hall where Marcus now stood at the center, no longer in casual vacation attire but in a perfectly tailored suit that commanded attention, his presence radiating authority as lawyers and advisors flanked him holding thick folders of contracts, and the same receptionist who had rolled her eyes at Helena the day before now stood trembling, her face drained of color, as Marcus's deep voice filled the hall with words that cut through the air like thunder. "As of this morning, I am the new owner of the Azure Pearl Resort," effective immediately, and the collective gasp that followed was deafening, the smug manager stumbling forward with stuttered protests about legality and timing, only for Marcus to raise one hand, silencing him with the sheer weight of command, and in that moment the balance of power shifted entirely, the once arrogant staff now nothing but trembling employees standing before the man they had mocked and humiliated, and with deliberate precision Marcus announced, "Every employee who disrespected my wife, my children,